Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to the next part of our Mecha Break guide. So, today we are going to be talking over Mashmak. One of my personal favorite portions of the game, matter of factly. So, I think what we're going to start off with here is what strikers I personally recommend people try to play for Mashmak, especially depending on what you're doing. So, firstly, on the topic of this from a completely solo experience, the most important thing to prioritize in Mashmak is speed and mobility. Being so, like, anyone who has a weapon dash attack, for instance, is going to be a good choice. More or less. So you've got Aleseness can dash. Falcon's a good choice. You got Lumine, if you're going to throw on some modular weapons for it. Aquila is good. Sky Raider, Stellaris, Panther, Inferno, loosely. I'm going back to Inferno. Alfred, Freyr, and technically Mickey as well. So all those are good because they have some variation of movement buff or mobility built directly into their kit. Now, obviously, the ones who have it best are the ones who have a dash attack, being Freyr and Stellaris, and like those ones who have like a lighter dash energy consumption. I say that to then sort of contradict myself and say that you can technically play any striker so long as you have this setup. The weapon doesn't matter so much as this one does. As long as you have a sword, you can technically play any striker in the game that you want, and it will be viable. What I mean by that is the sword gives you the mobility, and while you are not actively attacking with it, you actually consume no durability off of it. So while you're just air dashing about, you're not going to be consuming durability. If you attack things with it, then you are consuming durability. So you can take an induced sword, and any of the charged blasters, or miniguns, or beam cannons, or whatever it is you prefer to use in there, and you can make them work for you. So, all of it is going to be personal preference about what you're going to want to be using, and what you think you're going to want to run. Now, I am generally talking about covert ops for the most part, because they're what give you the best rewards with the least amount of risk, and for the most part, it seems to be what a lot of people are running these days. Like, the free-for-all and the co-op mode seems to have really dwindled off, especially since they've made where you can get these keys and the three free weekly passes for Mashmak in the covert ops. A lot less people are running them because where they can risk having to engage with other players and risk losing their stuff. Now, I'll talk about that more in depth in another video, because right now we're just talking about you getting started and doing Mashmak. So, what you are going to want to do for your very first few runs, pick your striker. I would argue you should choose one that has mobility built in, so the ones we discussed earlier, or if you can get lucky, and you come to your matrix supplies, and you scroll down here, and see, look, right here. I could buy one of these induced swords. Now, you are going to have to go and have some of this currency, which you get by doing Mashmak, and then selling some of the gear you come back with. But, do any amount of runs, or open any amount of gold chests that you have, and sell some patterns, and you'll get the money for this kind of stuff easy. So, there. You buy yourself a sword, you buy yourself a weapon airdrop, you come over here to here, and then you add it in. So I can go over here, go to my weapon airdrops, edit one, pick the weapons I want. For instance, go find that sword I just bought, throw it in there. Say I want to use an auto splitter, throw my ammo into it, and then back out, and boom, it's there, ready to go. Now, I'm not going to actually use that one, but you can have a bunch of different presets as far as what you want to do. Now, unfortunately, these don't stick around. You do have to remake them each time you use any resources out of here. But, so, this is what my general solo loadout will look like. I take in my blue keys, I take in some healing, I take in some cargo rockets, and I take in my weapons. So, this is what your general start is going to look like. You're going to go in there, you're going to drop some blue keys, you're going to explore the map, see what you get, find some basic gear, and then get out and go in again. Now, we are going to go over that all here in a minute, and as far as like actually dropping in and showing you what all that really looks like, but to talk about it preemptively, so there is actually a map that has the layout of various points of interest that the Mashmak map has. Because in addition to the marked targets that you encounter, there's also going to be covert ops whenever you drop these keys down, and they all have like doors that you access to in order to access said restricted zones. And then some of those restricted zones can actually help you hopscotch across the map by being massive shortcuts in comparison to the time it would actually take to traverse them normally. And then there's also the other bosses, like the overworld bosses, that can be in there. So Makalu can spawn at default in the middle of the island whenever you come in there. And if you destroy 5 or more of the large quad extractors, you guarantee Constantine to spawn. Now, Constantine is the big battleship that you destroy. It converts into the air carrier thing, which has all the lasers and beams on it and whatnot. And so it's a two-phase fight. Makalu is the big grounded mech that stays in the center. If you leave his arena and go outside, he does regenerate health. So if you can avoid it, you never want to leave his arena after you've done significant damage to him, because it will reset the fight. That being said, if we run into him, I'll show you how I deal with him. So, say all that to say what I am going to recommend you do. I highly recommend Inferno as the striker of choice to run like early game Mashmak. And once we get in here, you'll see exactly why I say that. But for now, we're going to jump straight into it and start going over everything. So, come here. Technically, you have a minute 30 to fix your loadout and other things that you don't have prepped. I already have mine fully prepped, so we're not going to bother doing any of that, but we are, in fact, ready to go. So, ready to go. Alright, and now, as you can see, now that we are launched in, first thing you're going to do, summon down your center, or your weapon crate. You can hit F to pick it up and immediately equip it. And then as you see in the left-hand corner, my right click is my dash, and my left click is my beam thing. So, I actually never spawned up here. That's interesting. But so what I always say is immediately check center. And with Inferno, since it has its Aux 3 as that energy kit, it can let you traverse the map really well. So you can see it's already just coming back online. So you fly, you get low on energy, you land, you hit the kit, you take off, you turn the kit back off, and let's say 7 seconds, you're going to be flying longer than 7 seconds, and it lets you more or less just fly across the map. It's one of the fastest ways that you will traverse the game. And for the most part, you can avoid interacting with all like the fodder and the chaff that comes into the map. Let's see. Okay, so see, in this instance, we have no Makalu, and I would argue that's actually good, because, like I said, for those first few runs of Mashmak, you really aren't going to be properly equipped to actually be dealing with him. But you do have some of these supply crates that you can come in here, loot, take what you want out of them, which that is going to be something I will discuss, as well as far as what I hold as like high value gear. And what I say not to bother worrying with.
Energy low. Stabilizing.
Now what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for that right there, actually. So as you can see off there in the distance, I've spotted where there is a large quad extractor. So now I'm trying to fly over to it to destroy it. Because I say, you have, from the start of the match, you have like 8 minutes to go and get it destroyed for the most part. And they are scattered across the map. So that is generally what your first few minutes of each match is going to be, is to destroy those. Inferno has this multi-target thing, like this, so he is very good at dealing with all like the chaff that you're going to encounter. Taking in high level weapons obviously does more damage, and so you can deal with those kind of things very quickly, as we just saw. Now, I want to make sure there isn't anything over there. So with that, start heading off. Now, you can toggle your booster kit on and off while flying, as you can see, but that's not really the greatest in comparison to just stopping and landing and taking off with it, I argue, because it gives you so much less energy in burst. Like, if you're trying to go just a little bit extra distance and you just really need those couple extra meters or feet or whatever it is, the game, I think mine's measured in meters, that's why I say that. But if you need just that little bit of extra distance, then that is something you can do. And I'm just going to fly up here and check. These boxes are... And something else you can do is there are special tiers of supply crates that can appear during this map, and you can actually preview them on your mini-map, so to speak, as you fly near them. You cannot find them on your main map until you actually, like, traverse over, like, well, in the same way that, like, the mini-map shows you, the main map would also show you, but only because you're in that localized area. Oh, something else that is worth noting is that in these covert ops, the enemies now actually scale down to your level in terms of their health pools they have, based on the solo, duo, or trio experience that you're doing. The exception to that is if you get Makalu and Constantine to spawn in onto the game. If they spawn, they are the same exact amount of health they would be if you had came in here with a full squad. So with that said, they do take time to destroy and kill. However, they are still an example of like some of the best loot in the game. So it's sort of one of those deals where you have to take the risk-reward, understand your capabilities, because if they do manage to kill you, then that's it. Because whatever they took off the option to where you can have your respawns during the solo mode of the game. So if they kill you, then you're out, and whatever you went in there with, you've lost, and it would be a tragedy depending on what you went in with. Now, since I'm going past them, I will mention it, but another good source of loot to consistently hit is these frigates that I'm about to come across here, because they spawn in every single match, and they're relatively easy to destroy in comparison to some of the other things that the map can throw at you. what you want is you want to destroy all that, and then what you're waiting for is for this thing right here to pop up. Once you destroy that, it is lootable regardless of what else is still remaining on top of the frigate. Them. Now, normally I do generally lean towards saving those till after you have done everything else, especially since I haven't destroyed all the extractors here just yet. There should be another one around, I'm thinking, unless I got the rare instance where they don't spawn too many of them. And of course, you can also always park yourself on top of some Corite crystals in order to get your energy back. Is another option whenever your booster is not available. And that goes for everyone, of course. That's not just an Inferno thing. And I suppose that is another thing you need to keep an eye out for, is just making sure you're not leaving the combat zone accidentally while you're flying about, because if you are up there too long, it will kick you from the match, and you will once again lose your stuff.
Energy low.
See, like right there, for instance, that's at a time whenever it's more valuable to me to have to wait just a little bit after I have already landed to then activate my booster. And there's actually, I need to go check over here because there's a chance that I can get one of those gold crates to spawn. And there's also, this is also a frigate spawn point. The crate I'm looking for isn't here. That's alright. We'll still go ahead and destroy this. Well. See, as you can see, so there's the 2 points where I couldn't find the other core, large core extractors. So they have now summoned in their storms. So, as I said, that is what you really want to try and avoid, is to not let that happen. But since it already has, there's something you can do about it now. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and drop in all of my keys. So now we go and wait and see where all of them drop in. Alright, so I'm actually going to go to this one to the south first, since it is farthest away from all the others. With it being isolated, then it's going to take more time to traverse between it and the next. And there's also a decent chance that it might shortcut me to one of the other restricted zones I'm needing to access. Now, I don't have that map I mentioned earlier pulled up at this moment, so I might be making that statement in a way that makes me seem a little goofy, perhaps a little silly right now, but as I said, I don't have it pulled up right now, so I'm going to assume I'm right. Now then, what we're actually not going to do is try and pass these challenges. Yeah, see, like, especially in this one's case. So, you can see down here where I am, it's going to take me to door 1, door 2. So, door 1 is here where I just came through, door 2 is the one across the way. Now, neither one is particularly helpful, but in 3 minutes, this thing will fail. So, in that time, while waiting for it to fail, I'm going to come back out here and fly off towards the other restricted zones. Now, yes, I can hear you saying, okay, but why are we doing this? Well, the reason for that is, with these being blue chests, they're going to give mediocre loot in addition to what they're going to offer as you being the one who dropped them. Because whenever you drop in a key, you are guaranteed a golden crate. Or golden loot box, or whatever it is you want to say. So, you can get the best reward, one of the best rewards you can, by literally doing nothing, by simply entering, letting it fail, and then going back out. So, what I'll do is I'll take these blue keys that aren't really worth other players' times, and I'll waste them here in solos, so that whenever I go to play with other people, we can do higher tier keys like the purples and the golds. The golds are very hard. They absolutely require team coordination. And so, don't go thinking that...
Energy low.
So the purples are like the common key, ironically enough, of like what you should be expecting to do with groups, I would argue. Now, some people might disagree with me, saying that they'll run blues or whatever, but it's pretty hard to run purples by yourself. It's not impossible, but you're going to have a much easier time with a group, and so I say just wait, have a squad. Don't even have to be coordinated, or just as long as everyone is competent, you'll be alright. And everything will be hunky-dory. Now, another thing that I could be doing is once I have these keys dropped, if I had that map pulled up, I could actually look for those other entrances. So there's door 1, door 2 thing I mentioned. Okay, so this is actually a rather tricky one that I definitely want to avoid doing. Okay, so see in this instance, door 1 is going to put me out in the storm, but we don't want to do that. However, it does put me near the alternate entrance of that other back door, I believe. But, like I say, we're not worried about doing that right now, but it is something to keep note of. So we're just going to go ahead and go back out door 2, let this one run its course, because this is actually one of the hardest rooms to do solo, is the ones that have all the snipers in there, because they can and will chew through your health faster than you realize, because four of them will lock onto you. They're those Narukami-style snipers that we all love to deal with, and if you are not careful, they will eat you. And then you'll be very grumpy and upset.
Sufficient engine output.
I say, especially the more you come in here with, because if you die with anything in here, you lose it. No chance to get it back whatsoever. Now, obviously, something to mention is there is a certain degree of risk in doing this style, being that if you don't remember where your doors are, like the back doors and all that kind of stuff, and you're doing this method, your entrances can get swallowed by storms. Now, it's sort of a minimal risk in the sense of that you can just not... You can still get in to the... Oh boy. Into the area that has the door and all that, but it is going to be a bit of a nuisance. So, with this one here, this is one of the few doors I would argue is worth sticking around through versus coming back to. Because with this one, you can let it hit that next segment where all these snipers are, and that cart is going to lose so much of its health so quickly that by the time you could leave and come back to it, you may as well just stayed. Looks like you can see. And as you see, I failed it. Now I came over here, collect it, and boom, gold box. Easy as that. And so now I can look at door 1, door 2 options. Door 2 or door 1 has nothing, so I'm going to go back to door 2. And in this case, once I go back to this one, I'm probably going to try and do that shortcut I mentioned. And see about going in through a back door. If nothing else, it'll be a halfway decent example of finding and using them, even if I waste a little bit of time doing it. Oh, too high. So these doors stay open once you open them, so it's pretty easy to find your way back through them if you do happen to not be able to see them because you're stuck in a storm or whatever. Now, this, as I said, is going to be interesting because I might get myself murked trying to sneak through here. Because there are all these Naru bots. As I said, they are prevalent and dangerous. Now, it is going to be a little bit easier because of me having one of these weapons where I can fire, ooh, dear lord, in their general area. But basically with this, what you want to do is try to navigate it to where you don't get caught in multiple beams, because getting caught in multiple beams is how you die. So I say, destroy the ones that are going to have line of sight on you. Then you come over here, and of course they're bots, so they track, and yep, it's a grand old time. Now, as I said, this is probably going to put me out into a storm. And you do want to avoid storms for the most part, but let's say, so we're on the, it's going to put us out on the edge of one, so we're not going to be stuck directly in it. And like I said, other entrance has gotten swallowed by that storm that I mentioned earlier. However, I believe this was the back entrance. And if that is the case, so we get rid of all these bits of fodder that would be in our way. AKA the people are going to shoot us in the back while we try to open the door. Yep, here is the back entrance. We can jump into it. And as you can see, now we can come over here, jet about, collect our third box, and head right back out. Now, at this point, this is when you would go around and do whatever is left on the map that you want to do. So if you were going to hit up any of these splitters, which I am, because I am going to also show you a... Okay, that was interesting. A good tech that you can do with... Oh, Lord. With Hurricane. So if you get up on them and you use your multi-beam splitters, normally only one will lock on. However, If you stand close enough to where they just happen to hit with where you're standing, then they continue to do the damage they would if, like, you know, a single one was locked on. So that is a way of which you can get very good damage. And one of the main reasons I recommend Inferno, in addition to the Beam Splitter doing its task normally.
Steer clear.
And let's have, they have these healing stations scattered across the map, but I always recommend, if you're solo, bringing in something to heal with, be that one of your own abilities, or if you're gonna bring in, you know, a healing station to drop down on the ground to use, I always recommend you bring something, because if you think you're going to be a player good enough to not take any sort of damage, especially if that damage then happens to be lethal, and then all of a sudden you can't find a healing station, well then, it's awfully silly. And the hubris was definitely not worth it.
Energy low.
Now,
Coming core pulse.
something I will say. So obviously we're getting closer and closer to being out of time. The way I generally run my Mashmaks is I will run and always go out of extraction point C unless I have a decent reason to do otherwise. Like, if I say this mission I had down here was not to go and destroy a drilling rig, but it was to go out extraction point B for like a gold crate. I'll do it for that reason.
Incoming core pulse storm. Steer clear. Engage now.
And then, of course, as you're doing everything, you know, say you find good loot, you don't want to be carrying it around everywhere. That's why you bring in your cargo rockets. You come over here, drop it in.
Steer clear.
So, toss in that, and I don't know, paint, sure, why not.
Incoming core pulse storm.
So, you know, those things in particular, I wouldn't say are actually worth consistently doing.
Leaving the now.
Okay, that worked terribly. Like, normally I'd say you're going to want to do that for stuff that you can't fit in your safe pocket and that you are trying to keep for, like, high-tier weapons or maybe, or for sure glider parts. But just like, you know, depending on what you're carrying, it's going to then depend on what I'm going to recommend you try and throw up. Because not everything is worth sending up. Some things, you know, you carry because you don't have anything better to really be having in your pocket.
Target confirmed.
That kind of a thing.
Stabilizing. Energy low.
And obviously, this is all going to play a little bit different if you were with a group. You know, you're going to be coordinating with them, seeing where they want to go, see where you want to go, who has what. You know, lots of additional things to factor in. And that there is another thing you want to be sure to keep an eye out for, is troop ships. Now, generally, with these, like, mini-bosses here, they're not worth your time. I generally say only bother with them if you're trying to get them knocked out so that they aren't harassing you while you're trying to loot the actual things you care about. So, troop ships, you know, any bosses that you've slain, that kind of deal.
Heads up. New
Because more often than not, the loot that they're going to give you is mediocre in comparison to what you'd be getting elsewhere. with the time investment that they're going to provide that you do. Especially those ones that want to transition phases and, you know, go from pew pew shooty man to being a melee unit. So, those are everything to include. Now, I always give drills the lowest priority whenever I'm playing, because in my personal experience, they give some of the worst loot, and they have the most health as far as things to chew through between all the units that are around them, and then their own health. They are usually what I give the lowest priority to. Especially this one, because you get to deal with these things. Because they are some of the most annoying enemies at, like, just the worst. Now, another good thing is that most, let's say, enemies have lower health, with you being in a solo player experience. And so, often, you can just one-shot them with a lot of your basic striker powers and abilities, and, well, not powers, but you know what I mean. Here's another good example of where Inferno can do crazy damage to things using the beam splitter tech. Basically, anything that's a big, slow, stationary target, it's pretty easy to do the Inferno tech with. Now, it's not... I know I talked about not really worth killing those guys earlier, but if you do kill them, you may as well loot them, because it's not like they just won't ever drop good gear. Like, I've had them drop... I don't remember for sure what it was, but, like, they dropped a crucial component I was missing before. Now, circling back to extraction points, you can see extraction point C is ready in 3 minutes. So what we need to be doing is heading to extraction point C and be ready to go out of it the moment that it opens. Because if you're ready to go out the moment it opens, then you can't get stuck in the zone and get trapped by the storm. Because you absolutely can. If you wait too long, the storm will start closing in very rapidly. And you will definitely start to see that here in a minute, about how rapidly it starts to close in. Also keep an eye on your minimap, because I saw that Marlet up there spawn in before I could actually see it.
Please engage this target.
See? Marlet. So at this point, I'm more or less just going to wait for that extraction point to open up. Because while I could go over to the drill that is relatively nearby, I don't think I'll have time to fully destroy and loot it before extraction's going to open up, and I don't want to die.
Extraction point B cleared. Weapon not ready. Stabilizing. Energy low. Incoming current cold storm. Steer clear.
So actually, the storm is very close here as C opens up. So you still have to come over here, interact with it, hope you don't get shot by any enemies that are peppering you as you're about. And that is more or less what you do for a basic run of Mashmak. And then, of course, you come back, you get in here, you see your results. You go through all your screens. You get crates because it was the start of the week. You see everything you got out of there, which in this case really doesn't look like a lot, but let's say you mostly do Mashmak, and it's also a very good source for credits. But then you come over here. Let's say you look through your loot, you see the new stuff you have. It does always show that your induced swords as new whenever they come back into your inventory. And then, in my case, I usually open up my crates and see what I get and all that. Then, you come back over here, go back into Operation Storm, go right back into where you just were, rebuild your kit yet again, and re-queue again. In my case, I did that at one point in time whenever I had, like, just absolute loads of excess keys. Like, for instance, so there was a period of time where I couldn't play consistently, but I was getting online, I'd come over here, I'd buy my 2 weekly keys, and then I had like 21, 30 of them or something like that I had stockpiled up. So I just went through here and burned all kinds of keys in solos. No, let's say that's how I recommend people get started into Mashmak. I keep forgetting to select multiple of those. And then, like I say, you can come over here and just move deeper and deeper into it as you get more prepared. And obviously, the more you play, the more stuff you're going to get, and the better you'll be and learn about the map and everything. So, that is where I'm going to call this video for the intro level to Mashmak. If you have any questions or comments or think I need to elaborate on anything further, please feel free to ask or make a comment down in, well, the comment section. And keep an eye out for the intermediate and advanced tutorials that are coming your way soon. And until then, I will see you all in that next video. Ta-ta!